But I saw something that you tweet today, and I kind of wanted to address this issue before we get it deep into the book.
What have I said?
No, it's you're a man in high demand these days, and I think it's because of some recent news that came up over the killing of Lee Rigby last year, who was a British off-duty soldier that was hit by a car and then stabbed and hacked to death by, I guess you describe him as Muslim extremists, I guess you would, and now it seems there might have been a Facebook message passed between the killers, and everyone is kind of asking what's happening. They're asking you, and you tweeted out, quote, predicting who of those that post extremism online will act isn't like finding a needle in a haystack. It's like finding a specific piece of hay. What's your take on, is Facebook responsible for this? Did MI5 not act? You wrote an article about this a year ago in the Huffington Post.
I did. And no, I don't think Facebook is responsible for this. In the same way that this committee that reported yesterday, this independent committee that was looking at the intelligence failure, I suppose, that led up to the murder of drummer Lee Rigby, they found that it was while there were some mistakes made, MI5 could not reasonably have stopped this murder from taking place, and the reason for that is the way terrorists operate has changed rather a lot in the last couple of years. Now, there's very little planning involved. There's very little coordination. Let's think about it. It takes one guy with a knife to go out on the streets and murder someone and say, I'm doing it in the name of religion. That's an act of terrorism. It takes 5 minutes. You need no planning or preparation whatsoever. And we can't stop that from happening. As much as I wish we could prevent these things, it is simply not possible. Now, the added difficulty for someone like Facebook is they have millions upon millions of users, many of whom are posting very aggressive, virulent, hate-filled content. Of those, a tiny number may go on to do something about it. And I've spent years trying to understand, can we predict from what people are saying online who those people are that might take it a step further? And for all my best efforts, I'm afraid I just cannot tell you. And I don't think Facebook can tell you, and I don't think MI5 can tell you. I don't think anybody can tell you, because human behaviour is just so damn unpredictable. So I think it's unreasonable to expect Facebook to be trawling through every post that anybody on its site ever makes, and then trying to pick out those that it thinks are a problem and pass them straight over to the authorities. It's just not going to work.
And you cover this like in chapter 2, lone wolves. And the interesting thing about the lone wolf attacker is their tradecraft is usually quite basic. It's very minimal. They've maybe read it online, or maybe they have nothing, and then they act kind of in an independent manner, and it's not a coordinated attack. I think any attack on the U.S. since 9/11 has been lone wolf style.
Well, and in a sense, that is a mark of how successful the intelligence agencies have been at preventing the big attacks. The reason terrorists are now sort of reduced to these smaller, more rudimentary types of operation is because they cannot any longer prepare these big attacks, because the intelligence agencies have got so good at stopping them. And so as a result, it's a sort of slightly strange irony. It's become harder to stop the smaller attacks because that is where they see that they have no choice but to do that kind of thing, because people like Michael Adebolajo would prefer to put a bomb on London Underground and murder hundreds of people, but he cannot do that.
Right, because he couldn't get the sodium nitrate.
He wouldn't be able to prepare it. He would, and so as a result, we're talking about things that are very simple and easy to do, and it's in a way remarkable that there's been so few attacks of this type.
Yeah, I agree with that. A lot of people don't want to talk about that, but I do agree with that. Especially people kind of on the left, they don't want to kind of give the credit where it's due, but it is true. Mm-hmm. And in the U.S., they, when there's this tries to organize or acquire a large quantity of explosive, they usually run into someone, FBI or CIA or something. So
the intelligence agencies, they're like a good referee at a football match. You don't hear from them, you don't see anything, but the match just carries on smoothly and it flows, and then if they make a little mistake, all the attention's on them.
Right.
And that's, I suppose, the way that it should be. But as a result, I think sometimes we sort of forget just how hard their job is and how good they are at it.
Right.
Yeah, sure, they overstep the mark sometimes. But ultimately, to me anyway, and it's my political worldview that security is the basis from which all our other liberties ultimately flow. So it is pretty damn important, even if, yes, internet privacy and all the rest is important too. To me, I suppose I'm getting older and I'm more conservative than I used to be. And I sort of think I understand how important that is for society.
No, that's a refreshing point of view. I've had a lot of whistleblowers in here that would disagree with you, but that's good. That's why we have this show.
What we call reality is in fact nothing more than a culturally sanctioned and linguistically reinforced hallucination.
This week on London Real, we have Edward Snowden's attorney, Jesselyn Radack.
Edward Snowden made the only choice he could make, which was to go outside of the United States to blow the whistle. What we're going through now, people should be marching in the streets over what NSA is doing. There has been so much fear-mongering by the government that they've been able to create an entire surveillance state.
And former NSA executive turned whistleblower Thomas Drake.
What I was blowing the whistle on was government illegality, violations of the Constitution, massive fraud, waste, and abuse and wrongdoing. This was raw power. This is the government saying, you know what? 9/11 is our excuse. We're just going to get the data. I was facing 35 years plus in prison.
To send a chilling message.
To whom?
To other whistleblowers, to others in the government.
If you dare hold up a mirror to the government, if you dare speak truth to power or of power, we're going to hammer you and hammer you good.
On Sunday, London Real presents Jesselyn Radack and Thomas Drake, NSA whistleblower.
We just don't do this to Americans. That's why we had an American Revolution.